Thank you for joining us for today's Dynamics Care webcast. I'd like to introduce Murray Fife, Solutions Architect at IBIS Inc. and Microsoft Dynamics AX MVP. Today, Murray will be talking about supplier relationships.
Thank you, Whitney. So today we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the tools that are available to you to help you manage your supplier relationships, how you can collaborate with them a little bit better, and also maybe some tools around the suppliers that you don't necessarily know about. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about a couple of different areas, and as we move through these, and I'm going to show you some of the different features within Dynamics AX that you can take advantage of. The first area that we're going to talk about is really the vendor contact and activity tracking. A lot of people use Dynamics AX CRM that's built into the system, but they don't necessarily know that you can also go out and track the same information against the vendors. I'll then talk about vendor portals, because these are a great and inexpensive way that you can give your vendors access to all of their information and also collaborate with you. Then I'll talk about the request for quotations and job bidding. These are features that you can take advantage of. The job bidding is actually part of the advanced supply chain suite of products that we at IBIS offer. But these are tools that you can go out and use to get the vendors to do a lot of the work for you by responding to quotes and typing in their pricing and doing a lot of different things. These all tie into the vendor portal itself. Then I'm going to talk about vendor evaluations, because what we can do is we can go out and start tracking how you're interacting with the vendors, how good the vendors are, and again, a standard feature within the system that you can use. And finally, I'll show you some of the vendor performance reporting, because there's a lot of business intelligence that's built into the system that you can go out and take advantage of out of the box and start getting some really nice dashboards out of the system. So we're going to start off and look at the first tool, which is really a great place to start, and that's the vendor contact and activity tracking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just switch over, and I'm going to move this up, and we're going to start looking at Dynamics AX. And if I go in and I'm in the procurement section, and if I go into my vendors, then I can move into any of the vendors. So I can go into pipe mill, for example. And what you'll notice as we move through this is there's a couple of things which are in common with the vendors that you may have seen with the customers around the CRM side. First of all, there's contacts that you can track against the vendor. So not only can we go out and track the addresses, and we can have our phone numbers and email addresses associated with this, for example, at pipe mill. So all of the standard information that you track here, you can also go out and track contacts. So I could go out and I could view all of the contacts that are associated with pipe mill, and we can see all of the people, so we can start tracking the purchasing manager and the payables manager or the receivables manager. I can also go and create a new contact here, and this is going to be for pipe mill, so I'm just going to select them. And then we can start tracking all of the people, so I can add Whitney in here, and also assign a job title and function, and then all the phone numbers and email addresses that are associated with them as well. Also, once you go out and start tracking these contacts, then there's a lot of information that you can record against these contacts, exactly the same information that you're familiar with within sales. So we can track personal information, we can track notes, we can track employment information, and then as a side note, all of this moves out to the campaign management because they become contacts from that point on. So there's a lot of information that you can start tracking for the vendors. Also, we can go out and we can track against all of the vendors' activities as well. So if I move back here and move back to my vendors, then I should be able to go over here to the General tab, and I can record events or activities against the vendors themselves. So, for example, I could schedule an appointment, and this could be the vendor review or the vendor evaluation within the system. And I can say what type this is. This is going to be a meeting, it's going to be a Facebook post, it's going to be whatever I want. And then I can also say who's responsible for this. And I can just assign someone to it. So again, all this information which is related to CRM is also available here directly against the vendors. One other item that you can track here against the vendor, which is important for later on when we start evaluating them, are the cases. So cases are a function which has been in 2012 since its release. But what this allows you to do is, if, for example, there's an issue, if there's a shortage, damaged product, or any other sort of transaction within the system, then you can go out and you can create different categories here, and this could be a receiving issue and then product damaged. Then we can also assign a case priority to this. This is high priority. And also we can have process flows that get ran through whenever certain types of cases are created. So you can have follow-ups scheduled with the vendor. You can start sending out emails automatically through the system. And also you're going to track all this information. So just as a as a starting point, then not only can you go out and sort of store all the traditional information that you'd normally expect against a vendor here within Dynamics AX, but also you can track all of the interactions and also all the people that you're managing within your supplier portfolio. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of change gears a little bit and talk about the vendor portals. So the built-in and delivered with Dynamics AX is a very cool feature, and that's the vendor portals. What this is a SharePoint site that you can roll out, and then you can allow your vendors to access all of their information directly through the web. So there's not the very important point to make about this also is that vendors accessing the vendor portal are free. So you're not charged for a user license. You're not nickel and dimed if you have 100, 1,000, or 2,000 vendors. It's just free user licenses within the system. And also it's secured as well. So if I go over to here and look at what a vendor would see, then this is the portal where the vendor logs in. They are associated with a vendor account, and also they're associated with a user that is linked to the vendor account as well. From here, the vendors can access all of their profile information. They can see all of the contacts here against the vendor themselves. They can also do some things here. For example, they can update their VMI, they can update purchase agreements, they can receive notifications, they can fill out questionnaires. And as we see here, the information is live and instantly updated or visible here within the website. So if they go out and if they add a new contact, then it's immediately available within Dynamics AX. And if you add any contacts, then it's also available here within the vendor portal for the vendor themselves. So going out and allowing the vendors to view this information is really easy to do, and also pretty straightforward. If you want to try this out yourself, then all you need to do is run the setup and deploy out the vendor portal. And then all the other side is that you're going to go out and create a user for them. So if I go over here to the system administration and look at the users, then I can go down here, I can filter this out and look for Russell, the wildcard there. And Russell is an external vendor that I've set up. And then all we do is we go out and we say that Russell is associated with Pipemail, which then goes out and says he can only view this vendor's information. This is the default vendor that's associated with them. And then by just logging in, then all he sees is Pipemail. So there's a little bit of security here, and also you go out and assign an external vendor profile to them, and they're up and running. So it's a very simple process to go and run through this. You don't have to go through a 6-month implementation to generate a website. All you may want to do from the standard system is go out and maybe tidy up or beautify a little bit of the vendor portal so that it has your logo and it looks a little bit nicer within the system. But again, it's not hard to do. So that brings me on to sort of like another area, which is a great way that you can collaborate with your vendors. And most of the time when you're going out and you're doing bidding or you're trying to get all the price quotes from your vendors, then you don't have to do that through manual processes. You can get the vendors to do a lot of the work themselves. So what you're doing is you're using some of the functionality that's built into Dynamics AX, and in conjunction with the portal to give the vendors access, and then they can update prices or they can respond to bids or quotes. And also you can go out and pick and choose which of those vendors you want to allow to work with you. And also, it's a great way that you can sort of file away information. So if I look at how this works, then all we need to do is go into procurement, and you're going to see 2 different options that we've got for sort of collaborating with the vendor. First of all, within procurement, we've got this request for quote option. Now, also something that we at IBIS have generated through the advanced supply chain functionality is a variation of this, which is job bidding. So if you're going out and negotiating with a vendor, then you will create a request for quote. If you're going out and trying to find the best suppliers to fulfill a sales order where you may be picking multiple suppliers and you're just trying to get the spot quotes here right now, then what you do is you'd go out and do a job bid. And this is where I can go out and create a package, and then we can then go out and generate requests for quotations or job bid requests for quotations that are then responded to by the vendors. So this is a little bit of extra collaboration that you can set where you're sort of merging the customer order with the request for quotation. But we've already done a presentation on this, so what I'm going to do is just show you some of the request for quotation functionality that's here within Dynamics AX. So all we're doing now is if we want to go out and request some information or request a quote or request a bid on a purchase order, then I can just tell the system that I want to create a request for quotation. This request for quotation can be a purchase order, or it could be an agreement, in which case we're going out and creating a price list, or we can create a bid for a requisition, a purchase requisition as well. But I'll just go out and create a purchase order, and I can associate this with a project if I want to. Then I can also add an expiration date, which is important because you don't want these to lag around too much within the system. So now I'm going out and I'm saying, what do I want to bid? And I'm just going to choose, I say I need 1,000 feet of this item. I don't know what the price is and I don't know what the discount is. And also, once I expand this out, you go out and just keep on adding in lines for everything that you want on this request for quotation. Then you go out and specify the vendor that you want to get the bid from. So I could choose pipe mill and just add them to this list, but also what I can do is I can do a vendor search, and I could find everybody that is in a certain city or a province. Also, I could go out and find everyone that's in a certain vendor group, so this could be for parts vendors. And it's going to go out and generate this expression for me. If we need to do manage diversity, so we need to grab certain minorities, or we need to grab locally owned items or anything like that, then we can also manage that. And what this is going to do is then it's going to go out and find all of the vendors that match that, which in this case is pretty much everybody. and I'm just going to go out and add these. I can add these to the list if I wanted to, or I could just accept the vendor that I had here. So all I'm doing here is going out and saying, what do I want to get the quote on, and also what do I want to, who do I want to respond to this? Then all I need to do to finish this off is process it. So what I'm going to do is send it out. If I can publish it to the vendor portal, I can publish it to external sites if I want to. Also, I can have this automatically send out emails to the vendors to notify them that they need to respond to these quotes. And if I'm a vendor, then all I need to do is pop into my website and then click on my request for quotes once I've received the email. And then it's going to show me all of the opportunities that I've got to respond. And here's the quote which I just entered in. So again, it's live, there's no synchronization that I need to perform. I can click on that, I can type in the quantity that I want or that I'm requiring that the company purchase. I can also go out and change the unit price if I want to, and just type in all the information that the purchasing agents would normally have to enter. So there's nothing really hard about this from the vendor standpoint. All I need to do is just reply to this, enter in say I can't give you 1,000 because my minimum quantity is 2,000, and that's feet, and then the unit price is going to be $10 a foot. Save this, and then they can continue responding to this, and then they send it back and complete it. So this isn't really hard. It's just going out, pointing and clicking, updating the quantities, and then sending it directly back to you. If you have good vendors, then this could be just a matter of minutes or maybe an hour, depending on lunchtime. And they've now responded to you. If we go back to our system here, we can see that we've received the request for quotation. We can compare replies if we want to. If this is a competitive bid, we can go out and accept any of these and then complete it, and now it's becoming a purchase order. So this is just an extension to the vendor portal that really allows you to go out and automate some of the process and also start collaborating with your vendors as well. So this is, again, a pretty cool tool and standard in Dynamics AX. If you want to go the extra step with job bidding, then just give us a call and we can help you with that as well. Now the fourth item that I'm going to talk about is vendor evaluations. So part of the management of vendors is tracking their performance, tracking issues against them, and then starting to report off that information. So built into Dynamics AX is a feature that's called evaluation criteria. So if I move back to procurement, then what we're going to see is if I look over here in the setup area within the procurement, then you'll see some things which are vendor evaluation criteria and criteria groups. The whole idea of this is that you go out and you say, how do I want to track information against the vendor or their performance, and then start entering it into the system. So I'm going out and I've set up some standard criteria that I want to track against the vendor. And then also I've broken them out into specific criteria groups. This sort of gives me a way that I can group these together and get consolidated sort of summaries on how the vendors are performing. The only setup that you need to do is to configure these two items. And then what you need to do is you need to create, which although you probably already have this already, configure your procurement hierarchy. And then add some vendors to that. So I'll make this look. Oops. So what we want to do is we want to say who are the vendors that we can purchase these items from, and then you add criteria or an evaluation group to this area. Now this could be up at the parent level and then it will inherit down, or it can be specific criteria for certain items. So if you have services, then you're not going to probably ask people to evaluate the freshness of the product or the packaging, and vice versa, you probably won't have questions or evaluation criteria for promptness of technicians for physical items within the system. Now, we'll hide this away for a second and I'll show you something else that you can do as well. Around the vendors, I've told the system that I want to open up a vendor, and there's a feature within Dynamics AX which you may want to use as well to gather information, and that's the word templates. And you can go out and you can associate these with records, and you can associate them with, for example, vendors. So I sort of added this sort of 4.5 section in here to show you some of the capabilities that you've got. And to set this up, you go out and generate a template and then associate it with, for example, the vendors. When you click on it, what this will do is this will create a predefined Word template for you. And this could be used for offline entry of the vendor evaluation. So I could say this is a 1, and then this is a 2, and so on, so that you're really doing this offline, and you can get the purchasing agents to manage this as well. But where this is important is that this goes out, and by generating this template, then it's also saving the attachment away against the vendor, so that we have the history of sort of like this offline entry of the data against the vendor themselves. Now if I go out and return back to my criteria here, then what I do is I go out and I tell the system I want to run an evaluation against this vendor. And now what it's doing is, if I pull this over, it is giving me all of the individual criteria that I've told the system that I want to track. So the timeliness, and if I make this a little bit bigger, extend this out, then I can assign ratings from 1 to 5, and I could say their timeliness is excellent, their quality of parts is excellent, and just keep on filling out this information. And if you notice over on the average rating over here, it's giving me a little bit of a summary for this group as I move through. If I had multiple groups, then I could track different criteria against the vendors and get different evaluation properties. So all I do is just keep on recording these, and I can have additional evaluations done over and over and over again, so that then I could get a history over time. And if you go out and take this sort of out to the next level, then you can report off this information and start getting statistics on the vendors. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using Power View within Excel to go and grab all of the vendor criteria and the ratings that I've recorded against the system. And now what I have is I've got a dashboard where I can go out and I can look at a specific vendor, and I can see how are they performing, what's the criteria, where do they need to improve, and then I can also start sort of filtering this information out here within Power View to see what was causing the discrepancies. In this case, I've broken everything out here by the different evaluation criteria groups that I've got in the system. This is as you're managing vendors, and part of the struggle is really making sure that you've got enough information so that you've got leverage to communicate how well they're doing or how well they're not doing. So this is a great way to sort of track and manage your vendors and get a better relationship with them, and also track who you don't have a good relationship with from a performance standpoint. Again, information is key, and grabbing the information out is really the most important thing. So what I'm going to do now is talk about the final item that we have, and it sort of rolls on from the scorecard that I just showed. And that's starting to report off the vendors themselves and some more quantitative results rather than sort of the more informal sort of ratings that the suppliers give. Because what you want to do is you want to start tracking their on-time delivery, you want to track how much was delivered, what their cost was, what their variances were. And all of this reporting is available to you out of the box as well. So if I return back here to my dashboard, what I'm going to do, with this trick once more, is there's a lot of data that Dynamics AX is grabbing out of the box. And one of the best tools to go out and report off this information is Power View. Power View is delivered with SQL Server and SharePoint, and is also embedded within Excel, which gives you a lot of reporting capabilities. But if I go out and open up the purchasing cube, one of the 18 cubes that's delivered with the system, then what it allows me to do is it allows me to see all of the metrics that have been tracked against the vendor, and then I can see all of the things that I can sum or report on. So for example, for the purchase order lines, I could see how many days late these are. If, for example, there's the confirmations are late, or the first receipt is late, or the complete amount is different, I can just click on, for example, the purchase order line so that I could count the number of lines. And then I can go out and go down to here and go to my vendor, and then maybe grab the vendor group and see what the breakout of all my vendors and how much I'm purchasing from them is tracked within the system. So if I convert this to a matrix, then I can convert this to a column chart, and then that's going to show me sort of like a simple view here of where I'm going out and grabbing most of my items from. And then I can start creating additional metrics here. So maybe I want to look at the product receipts and see the average days early, the average days late as well, and then see this maybe by the actual vendor themselves. So I'm just going to select the vendor. Click on that. So now we're starting to get a little bit more information. And if I move this around, I'm just going to rearrange this a little bit and change the formatting. Vendor at the beginning, pop this up as a matrix, or even go out and show this as more of an info card. So now we're seeing each of the vendors listed out with the average days late. If I click on any of these items, then it's also going to filter out, and if you notice over here, the vendors are changing as well. So if I select any of the smaller items here, then it's going to filter out just to the vendors that I want. So I can go out and say this is my vendor performance. Then I can take this one step further. I can go out and I can save this. So now I'm plumping it out there onto SharePoint so that everybody has access to it. And if I really wanted to get clever, then after this is saved, then I can go out and say I want to export this to PowerPoint. And then if I save this to my desktop, then this is going to do something which is pretty cool, because it's creating a PowerPoint for me, but embedded in the PowerPoint is my dashboard that I created. I can minimize this, I can make this a little bit smaller, I can rearrange it, I can put whatever templates I want around this. But when I go into slideshow mode, then it's going out and it's going to create the report from all of my vendor performance information. And if I click on this interact button, then it's going to allow me to view all of the real-time data within the system, and then also it's going to allow me to filter the information out as if I was running the report normally. So if I click on this, then it's going to give me a summary and change all the information. If I click on this item here, then it's going to filter the information out, showing me the average days late and the average days early here within PowerPoint. For a buyer, this is great because if you're going in and negotiating with the vendors, then you can have all of your standard reports in a PowerPoint, make it look like a PowerPoint, but then drill into the information and have all of this set up. So these are, over the past little bit, we've been talking about all of the different ways that you can improve your relationship with your vendor, some of the tools that are available within Dynamics AX that you can take advantage of. So, for example, we can have things that you'll want to do is manage all the contact information, track the activity, track cases, give vendors access to all of their information through the vendor portal, start collaborating with them through request for quotes and job bidding, then start evaluating them by tracking the qualitative information like on-time performance, the helpfulness, and so forth, and then start generating dashboards and reports out of the system for the vendor performance so that you can start then getting even more information and getting a little bit more ammunition when you go out and start negotiating with your vendors and negotiating with your suppliers. So hopefully, I've gone through the demonstration. So hopefully we've shown you a couple of tools that some maybe you're not taking advantage of, some maybe you're already using to a degree, but when you grab all of these together, then it's just going to make the purchasing process so much more streamlined and also give you a lot more insight into how you're working with your vendors. So at this point, we'll probably open up the line for questions, or if there's no questions, then we'll just continue on and let you finish your day.